Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. I went a little out of order earlier when I started talking about our evaluation team, but I would reiterate that Jackie is going to talk about body language and how it relates to telling this tale. Leo is going to focus on the message as a whole, and I'm going to focus on the vocal variety. I think I'm going to start, followed by Jackie, and then Leo, and then we'll sum up at the end. So Ed, one thing I'm going to say is you have a beautiful melodic voice. There's a lovely musical rise and fall as you tell the story. It starts off, you're telling us the story of growing up, and your enunciation is perfect. Where you're telling us about the granules of the earth and the slight hint of the manure. I could hear it and I could feel it, and I swear I could smell it. And you have an ability to be your own straight man. It's very hard to tell a joke and not laugh at it. And you have this delightful flatness to your tone when you're delivering the punchline. And unlike Elmer Fudd, it was a great line. And the only reason it works is because you do have that straight, flat tone to deliver the funny punchline. Your speech shifted about midway through, right after that wonderful tale of the tomato plant and the pop. And I could feel that pop as well as hear it, that pop of the tomato. And then you went into becoming a man. And there was an emotional hitch in your voice. The cute story about, meeting your wife and wooing her over. It did not have the same emotional impact with me because you didn't have the true emotion in it. But when you were telling us about getting in that car and driving to the airport, there was a thrum of emotion that came into your voice. And there was this tiny hitch when you ran into a problem going to the airport to finally meet your daughter. And you imbued your voice. Your voice was near rapturous when you were describing meeting the birth mother. And I could feel the affection and the gratitude that you had for this woman. It was in every word. It was in every syllable that you uttered. It was a lovely tone that you added to your voice. There's a thrum of emotion in the melody of your voice. And when you spoke of your daughter bringing you to tears, I don't know if you saw it, but I started crying because I felt that in those words. I'm tempted to tell you that that you're too mellow. I'm tempted to tell you this, and that you need to have more rise and fall and be more emphatic in some terms. But this was not a humorous speech, and it was not a tall tale. It was a very subtle tale of emotion and becoming a man. And it was a story about your life. And it was masterful. I'm turning it over to Leo. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm turning it over to Jackie.
Edward, I was supposed to watch for your body language, and you seemed concerned about runaway arms, that your gestures got crazy. And I really didn't see that. I thought at the beginning maybe you were thinking about that because a lot of your gestures seemed really tentative. And when you first got up, you kind of pulled your pants up, and that isn't a good starting point. Yeah, you should have done that before you started your speech. But that you can fix pretty easily. But at some point you metamorphosed and you took your gestures and you owned them, and they were excellent. When you picked the tomato, and we could see that cherry tomato and we could taste it, And I remember how sweet those are, and I can't wait for them to grow in my garden. When you got hit by the bolt of lightning, I thought you owned that. I thought you did that really well. I was pretty sure it was a woman, but I thought it was really good. A little bit mystery. The way you talked about your wedding being ceremony and silliness and photography, I liked the alliteration of ceremony and silliness. I loved it when you talked about meeting the birth mother for your daughter, and how there was awkward small talk, because that would be a difficult situation, and that was good. I think that your gestures were great. I think you maybe practice with them more, film yourself, tape yourself, film. Nobody uses film anymore, but videotape yourself. Nobody uses tape, whatever the current term is. I think that works better than using a mirror, but whatever. I think practice those gestures so that you own them, because when you took over and owned your gestures, they were very effective. Your enthusiasm and your sincerity was excellent. And when you talked about the baby melting into your chest and then putting her little arms around you, that was very moving. Great job. Thanks. Barbara. Leo.
All right. Thank you very much. All right, I will morph into the third evaluator for Edward, for your speech. And first, I do want to say thank you for taking us for a walk through your speech, or through your experiences through your life. You picked out 3 items in your life that we could all feel, and to me, that was probably the most important thing about sharing with us, was that you picked those key events, and we could feel and hear yours, but we also were able to relive ours. And that's the key part of a great presentation, is that we relive our own experience through your experience. And so you did a fantastic job with that. And just want to start out with that. There were 3 vignettes that you used, and I'm just going to make a couple comments on each one. The first one that I thought about as you were talking about the garden and bring us into the garden, your description was very good. What I want to know is, what did that make you do? How did you react and interact with that garden? Could you feel the dew? Could you when you broke a cucumber in half, did it snap? I would like to hear some more of that. Both all of us could see the tomato and feel the tomato, but prior to that, you had some activity. And if you described what it did to you, that would put us right there as well. So just take a moment and close your eyes and take a look, and then just relive that experience and just tell us what you feel and see. And that'll help us get us right there in your grandpa's garden. When you saw that flash, I'd like you to kind of, again, tell me what else happened to you. Did you become breathless? Did your mouth become dry? Did your jaw drop? What else happened? Because that used the specific date of the 25 May of 74, very important to you, but there was a number of great things that happened to you as far as emotion. And to bring us there, make sure that you kind of tell us what happened to your body physically, and that'll help us relive that as well. And then that third experience that you shared with us, again, I melted as well. And again, you can even get us more deeply into that by just telling us about the warm hand, what it felt like, and how it melted you. So it was a great job. You really built up strongly in your stories there to a really big event. And one of the things you did close sharply. I'd like to see a little bit more wrap up with all those. So these wrap up to help us just kind of ease us out of the story. But fantastic job. And again, thank you for sharing that with us. And I'm going back to our team lead, Barbara.
Thank you. As you've shared with us how you metamorphosized into a man, what we're going to offer you now is the opportunity to tell us what this feedback has given you and your response to it.
Well, thank you, Team 1 Evaluation Lead, and thank you, Team 1. You're very, very kind, very supportive, very encouraging. I think I'll keep speaking. For me, that speech is fun. I enjoyed giving that. When I first wrote the speech, I intended to focus the entire speech on my grandpa's vegetable garden. It was enormous, particularly for a child. It was huge. He had 9 children of his own. That garden was important to their being able to afford to live and feed each other. So it was quite the going operation. And I suppose I could have worked in some of the preparations because he had hothouses and greenhouses, and he was starting plants in February, transplanting things, and just quite an elaborate operation. What I took away from that for myself is I love gardening. I don't have a huge elaborate gardening. I certainly have tomato plants. As far as the emotion of it, I'm never quite certain. I've given the speech before, and I've been told that people really get captured by the emotion around the adoption and then the holding the infant. I think I don't really express that maybe as well as I could because I'm not really feeling that. So I think it was really great advice for me to be able to feel what I'm sharing with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. We return it back to you.
Thank you, Barb. I don't know, you want to invite our audience, especially those who may not have any role. We invite, please continue to, how are we doing on time timer, Mr. Keith?
Yes, it's still 1 to 2 minutes. So Barbara, please watch the timing as you get the audience feedback, 1 to 2 minutes.
Barb, would you like to lead the conversation with the audience for evaluation?
Of course, thank you. Jane?
Jane, you're on mute.
So Edward, I would like to comment on your story. I thought you're very good at storytelling and you're very descriptive when you tell your story. I think it was a very touching story, and especially at the end when you describe the hug. And I think what you could do is just picture that day and just get your emotions into it, and then just you'll feel that hug, and you could describe it more that way. And I thought with the pauses, you could pause a little bit more when you're telling your story so that we can digest that story too, because there was a lot in the stories. But all in all, I thought you did a great job. It was a very touching story, so thank you.
Anyone? Oh, Jamie Osborne, please. Ogborn.
Thank you, lead evaluator. That's fine. I just wanted to point out something that's easier seen than read. You used numbers, which is great, but they were sideways. When you're on video, it's in 2D, so you can't tell. You have to make sure that the fingers are flat as opposed to sideways. And then also just a note, if you have a white background and you have light colored skin, it's also harder to see. You had a much better background for actually using your body language. Back to you.
Oh, you are on mute, Barb.
Oh, gosh. I said we were out of time. So I'm turning it back to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Barb.